Okay, we're going to start.
Order. Susan Wavala will not be here today. We're still hoping we might see Dirk. The first item on the agenda is the March 13th meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do you have any corrections?
Second. No corrections.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And the next item is the Greenlight Pinellas Outreach Plan. Brad.
Going to ask our folks from Tucker Hall, Tony Collins and Rafaela Amador, to walk you through their presentation. This presentation and proposal was presented initially to the advisory committee for Pinellas Transit, which Ms. Jelski sits on.
Were you there for that, Susan?
I was not there to attend that meeting.
I mean, have you seen the Greenlight presentation? Okay, so we do have two people that haven't seen it yet.
Two people have not seen it.
I was there.
Oh, you were?
We can. They will go faster than they did at ACPT, I'm sure, but we'll just try to keep moving along.
Okay, and just so that everybody knows, I believe, if I remember correctly, ACPT endorsed it.
Right, and this is going to go, you're going to see this PowerPoint again at the April 24th PSTA meeting,
and
next Wednesday.
You're looking for us to
recommend approval.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I got it.
All right, well, we will try to be brief, but we'll stop
That's okay.
and entertain more details as you need. So we want to do three things. Give you some understanding of from whence we've come. The last time I did this presentation, we had the alternative analysis stacked up here. I don't know the exact number, 2,079 pages, I believe, which is a part of the work that's been done on transit. But, and
of course he has that.
Mr. Johnson has a document. But it also represents 30 years of conversation that's been going on in Pinellas County of transit. It's 30 years of governmental focus and 30 years of civic input. So we want to talk about what's been said, what you asked us, and then where we are today. So first thing, many of you have had a chance to talk with Kirby, give this description of how communities talk about questions. There's a lot of educational work that goes into this, but essentially at the top of the pyramid is you have visionary people who come up with an idea, and generally it's 3%. And they start to talk about it. They could be planners, they could be philosophers, they could be government officials. Then you have what we call the primary leadership group, which is people who have official elected positions, and they're elected officials or appointed officials. They have a job, and their job is to lead. And then finally, you have what we call the thought leaders, people who are engaged in these conversations on an ongoing basis, and because they're civically involved, because they want something positive to happen. The most important group, or one of the most important groups, is what we call the busy middle. Roughly 60% of people at any given time may have a vague familiarity with an issue, unless it's top of mind. They know enough about it. The Rays, we know that the baseball season has started, but unless you're a real fan, you probably don't know they lost their last 5 games. Somebody want to correct me? It might be 6. But they lost a lot of games. If you're a real fan, you know that, that Burrow Hernandez pitched last night. But the average person says the Rays are playing, and they know that. At the bottom is a group that, who, whatever the question is, who may just be psychologically opposed to the question. If you were talking to people who are environmentalists, and you said, I want to start drilling for oil in the Antwerp, we don't really have to do a whole lot. They're going to say no. That's sort of who they are. If you're the Sierra Club and someone says, let's do offshore drilling, 99% of the times you can be pretty sure. There are other people who find a question and before the discussion really begins, they just say no, and that's what the pyramid looks at. Where we're at today is that we have a conversation that's going on with the visionaries in Pinellas County. It's been going on for a while. It has engaged primary leaders like yourself and thought leaders, and we're beginning to turn toward the group that we call Busy Middle to begin to ask them to consider this question. We talked a lot about how that works. We've had discussions about a referendum that's coming. One of the things we keep pointing out is that the education and eventually the time that we will have a referendum, it's the same conversation. It's not the same activity, but it's two sides of the same coin. There's lots of legalities. I'll defer that to your legal counsel and respond to those questions. But as we pointed out in previous presentations, we've done this, we Tucker Hall have done this multiple times. Communities do it all over. They have an education discussion about an issue. It's their right, and some would argue their responsibility to say to people, we want to talk about transportation, or we want to talk about EMS, or we want to talk about water, and there's an involvement, there's an education process. That generally involves the planners and the political leaders, such as, I don't know if these things are tuned up before.
Should be.
So what do I do? Push the button? We had these things before.
Yeah, you should just click next.
I did, but it did not go.
Reset after it played through.
I see it.
Hi, I'm Shannon Stahl, Chair of the Sarasota County Commission. On May 6, all of us in Sarasota County can vote on a bond question on the ballot that will give our local economy a boost and create more than 2,000 new local jobs and stretch our tax dollars. Last year, funding was approved by voters for the extension of the 1% penny sales tax. That funding included a list of projects like sidewalks and roads, parks and beach improvements, libraries, water quality protection, and many other projects. If voters approve the county request to bond, many of these projects will be fast-tracked for construction. Along with the new jobs, the benefit from the ultimate investment of $300 million in our community will ripple through our economy to keep it moving. We want to put the already approved money to work faster and sooner to create new jobs and strengthen our economy. Please vote on this bond issue in early voting starting April 21st or on Election Day, May the 6th.
So those who don't know, that is Shannon's, Shannon Stahl, Chair of the Sarasota County Commission. That was an education program they ran. They did a $750 million bond issue to invest in infrastructure. At the same time, the private sector group, toward the end of their education campaign, said, you know what, we think that this is important. And they raised money and they put together their campaign that said vote for. Commissioner Staub said you should go out and vote, and the private sector said vote for. One of the things we have said to you early on is that we're Pinellas County. You're hearing a lot of conversation about what's happening in Hillsborough, what's happening in other places, what happened in Denver, but we're Pinellas County, and when you're beginning to talk about transportation or any kind of education thing, it's always a local issue. All politics is local. We're simply not Hillsborough County. Hillsborough County did some things different than we've done here. There are 25 different governmental entities in Pinellas County. Hillsborough has 3 actually, 2 cities and the county government. There are 25 in Pinellas County, if you include the county government. It's a different process, and so we've taken a different approach in having this discussion. We think it's important that this discussion reflect who Pinellas County is and that we not try to be somebody else. So I'm going to ask Raphael to talk about, we had an opportunity to meet with most of you, if not all of you, and ask you questions about what your thoughts were. We also met with community leaders, and we're going to talk a little bit about what you guys said to us when we went through this process.
So part of the RFP request was that we look at data, some of the data that you've collected in previous years, also stakeholder interviews, discussions with various community stakeholders as well. And this is a really busy chart, but the things that are really important about it are that this is 5 surveys over 3 years. So there's a consistent need and want for approval. The top number is 80%, and the bottom number is 58%. And this takes into account everything from park and ride to traffic signals, rail in and out of the county. The key stakeholder interviews. This was, I personally met with many of you, Tony met with others, and we talked to you about what you want, what were the questions out there in the community. We wanted to make sure that we heard from you because you are hearing from your constituency. So our key stakeholder interviews talked about, number one, the need to go to referendum. Everybody agreed that PSTA has to change its financial profile. The ad valorem tax is not sustainable anymore, so we have to move into a different financial profile. Everyone was excited and willing to move the conversation forward. No one said, yes, we're going to vote for this today, but everyone said, yes, we should continue to have these conversations that we've been having for 30 years. The time is now to keep going and keep moving because we need a solution to transform Pinellas County. There were lots of questions. There continue to be lots of questions. Things that are happening right now in order to answer these questions. We did the AA, the bus study's underway, land use planning's underway, the Greenlight process will begin. There are all kinds of mechanisms to get more information to everyone. And the biggest question was, how do we pay for it? That's a consistent theme throughout, and we are confident that when the plans come together and we have the option of the sales tax, we will be able to answer this question for everyone. Our recommendation, from looking at all the plans, we looked at 7 different plans, stacks of paper this big, and one of the things that was really evident was that there needed to be a single cohesive place where people could go, because people are busy. I know that many of us have outside lives other than transportation, and so being able to go to all the different websites, which are all fantastic, the MPO website and the PSTA website, to try to find information is not something that we have time for. So getting this one simple, accessible place that we could have a conversation was really important.
So I guess I want to go back to just for a second and point out that this was something we said to you. You guys said it to us. The community said it. Can we have one conversation? Yes, we understand there are important agencies. There, from FDOT through MPO, there are lots of agencies. But frankly, if I'm Jane Smith, I really want to know: can we have one conversation on transportation, and why should I care? Please make it simple, make it accessible. So we decided that that was an important element, but in order to do that, what does it take for a community to have that conversation, have it be meaningful? So number one, something that we said, and we've also agreed with that, we must have a consensus of leadership. One of the lessons in Hillsborough County, some might recall, they were not prepared to move forward with the referendum question until May of 2010, and with the referendum being in November. They were still discussing things as simple as where it's going to stop, which direction is it going, how many stops. That was a conversation that was going on in May. And what was most important to the people outside is that the leaders were continuing to have, should we call it a public conversation? Some would call it debate, some would call it an argument. Here, one of the things that why we think it's time to have this discussion with Greenlight is that there is a consensus of leadership. There was a 15-0 vote in front of PSTA. ACPT has recommended that we move forward, and in recent history, the Pinellas County Commission essentially voted 6-1 to continue this conversation. We think that's important, and it's important to the public. the polls that we've seen, we talked about 5 polls over 3 years, and then the Bay News 9 and the Tampa Bay Times did their own polling, and they said, you know what, people want to have this conversation. They want to know what we can do to move transportation. So you have a consensus of leaders saying let's have this conversation. You have a consensus of the public saying let's have this conversation. I want to emphasize again, they did not say absolutely yes. They said we should have this conversation. The time to do this is now. And let's have it and make it a public, open conversation. So we're coming to you now with a strategy about how it will work and 2 fundamental principles. The strategy is really straightforward. In order for people to accept and be willing to grasp this issue, you have to have a viable, credible plan. What does viable mean? That's a word, by the way, that comes from the Tampa Bay Times. It means that all the issues that are important have been discussed, they've come together. The plan makes sense in all of its each individual component, but the parts fit together. Where are we with that now? The bus study is soon to be finished, right, Brad, in another month or so. We have the AA. We need to bring those, as Commissioner Johnson always talks about, bring those together and create the single plan that people in Pinellas County can say, I understand the plans. 2, they need to believe that someone is accountable, clearly accountable for executing the plan. So here's the plan. This entity, these individuals are responsible for executing it. They will do these 3 things by these dates. And that's what the public wants to know. They have not in any detail asked us things about the land use plans are going on, but the general, the busy middle, wants to know, here's what we're doing, it's bus, it's rail, it's trails, and this entity is responsible, and they're going to do it by this time with this amount of money. So accountability, viable plan. And then finally, what the Greenlight campaign is all about, the education campaign is, you have to be able to say to people from Tarpon Springs to Pinellas Point, what's in it for me? How does this affect my life? You know, how does this transform the community that I live in? Does it have any impact on it? Is there some reason I should be in favor of it? Does it do some things generally, or does it do something specific? What's in it for me? And so the bottom line and the foundations of all that you're going to see about the Greenlight proposal is that we have one conversation, one public conversation that everybody can participate in at whatever level they choose, and that it's transparent and inclusive. You know, we spent a lot of time as we went around talking to people. Several people asked us, okay, I understand what you're doing, but what's the secret plan? And we actually considered making up a secret plan because everybody was disappointed that we didn't have one. It's really, really critical. We've heard this. I was in Polk County yesterday talking to the county administrator and their commissioners, and they're beginning to consider a conversation about transportation. And the thing that they talked about is, the thing that they like, that they see, is that this appears to be coming from the bottom up, and anyone who wants to, whether they agree or not, can be in the conversation, and it's fairly transparent. There's a bus study coming, there's an AA, there's nothing else. There's no secrets, there's no vision. If we need one, we'll go find one, but we don't have one. So those are the 2 things that are important. So having said that, we started this process, and it's just a little over a year ago, believe it or not. Those of you were here. Kind of, I think my hair is grayer. I know my nerves are more frayed from having this discussion. But it's a year later, and if you saw the original chart, we said we're up at the top. The visionaries understood we're having this conversation. Here's where we think we are today, based on the interviews, based on the discussions, based on the meeting. Visionaries still involved, the primary leaders, and they voted. You guys voted. You voted to send it forward and to ask the county commission, to ask Brad to ask the county commission if you can have a referendum. You've engaged the thought leaders. There are lots of people who have lots of opinions, and they're certainly willing to share them. I'm sure all of you have that experience. So they're engaged. But what is also now, I wore my button this morning, thanks to PSTA, and lots of people saying, yeah, tell me more about Greenlight. There's a conversation. They want more information. They're engaged. Organization after organization after organization is now saying the #1 topic of conversation in Pinellas County is transportation. So we've begun to engage the busy middle. These groups, at the top, there's a consensus of leadership, and the busy middle is starting to look and ask questions, and it's starting to turn a little bit green because they now want to know what's in it for me, how does it affect me. So this is the part where we think we started with you wanted to know what that brand would look like, what does one plan look like, and another busy chart. Rafaela gets to tell us.
So this is the brand, our brand slide that we use for all of our brand presentations. And it's really important because what brand success is the promise of what you're going to deliver and then the experience of that delivery. There's a lot of busy things on here. There's mission and goals and values. There's the identity, which is the actual visual stuff. This is the service, the delivery, the reputation, what people are actually experiencing and saying they're experiencing. But right here in the middle, it all starts with leadership. And that's where we are today. Leadership is the center that holds everything together and pushes out through all the rings of the community. We talked a little bit about the most successful brand that I know, anyway, which I think is Disney. It is the happiest place on earth if you are a child. If you're a parent, there's a different opinion about that. But if you're a child, you are elated in princesses and everything that is wonderful about Disney you have experienced because that is their goal. There's a Disney store. It crosses over. There's Disney cruises, right? They cross over into every part of what Disney does. But what they do is they promise that it is going to be the happiest place on earth, and they deliver that experience. That's what we want to do with our brand. And transportation certainly is not castles and fairy tales, but it is really important in transforming the community. One of the things that I like to point out about the Disney story is that Walt Disney had a vision for what it was, and he said, I'm going to build a castle first. All the engineers and everyone said, that's crazy, you're wrong, that's not the way to do this, there's a way we should do this, and it's clear and everybody knows it. He said, I don't care. The castle is the most important thing. It's the strongest part of our brand. It's what I want to model everything around. And he did it. And as you know, the castle is what everyone identifies with. It's their logo. And so there are things about what we're going to do, about our brand promise that we are going to deliver, and we're doing it a different way because we're Pinellas. We've learned from a lot of other cities, a lot of other transportation education initiatives, and this is the one that we feel is the most promising in delivering our brand.
So I want to emphasize that some people have asked, and in the paper on Sunday, they're waiting for Pam Monterey to appear. I actually saw a baseball game. I said, glad to see you're in town. People have been asking about you. But it's not about transportation because we're Pinellas. What we have, and we think it's effective, is that leadership is here. Notice that this is not a pyramid, it's a sphere. Leadership's in the middle. It includes your CEOs, it includes you, it includes all the staff, and it emanates. That's the Pinellas way. You heard Commissioner Welch talk about it. And it's just, there are no good ways or bad ways, but the Pinellas way is that there's going to be a leadership cadre, there's going to be a leadership core. If you're waiting for John Wayne, he's not coming. It's going to be all of us responsible for getting this done together. And so that is the brand promise of Greenlight. You've all probably seen the logo by now. It's in the newspapers. The Greenlight logo, it's kind of a fascinating thing because it was developed through a collaboration. We worked with international designers around the world. I don't know the exact number, 300. And said, hey, here's a concept. Here's a community that believes in collaboration. They want to work together. They want to include all these things in the transportation concept. Tell us what that looks like to you. Give us your imagination about how that would look like. And then we sort of went back and forth with them and ended up with this design. So that is Greenlight. That is Greenlight Pinellas. So what does it mean? Well, Greenlight Pinellas is a two-way conversation. It is a conversation that we've been having for about a year that says, should we do something different about transportation? Greenlight means you're free to move through the intersection. Greenlight means you're free to move forward. You're hearing people now, we'll see it everywhere all of a sudden. Greenlight means you have approval, which you greenlight this project. If you're on tracks, if you're rail, greenlight means clear track. It means the track is clear. It means the way is open for you to proceed. We also don't think, and the Greenlight promise that we're making is Greenlight means that we're going to move in unison, that we have 25 local governments and leaders who represent them, and that they have decided as a cohesive group to move forward in the same direction together. Does not mean, and we've been very careful to say this to everybody as they debate whether the walls in the first station should be blue or pink, that they're going to agree on everything. It does mean that we're looking in the same direction, that we believe that transportation can change the future. Somebody said it today at a meeting that was at a regional meeting. We're at a crossroads where we can decide what kind of community we want to be going forward. And so Greenlight is a two-way conversation. It's about dialogue amongst groups and individuals that's started and will continue. It's about Greenlight panels that Brad has already begun talking to people and saying, look, we want to hear directly from you. This will not be a situation where we, Tucker Hall or anyone else, will go out and make presentations that are speeches only and wait for the applause and thank you very much. It's going to be real-time feedback from panels. Things that are traditional that you're used to seeing, forums. Those things will be part of the Greenlight two-way conversation. And interactive websites and videos, all the things that you're used to seeing to make certain that it's a two-way conversation. Greenlight's a transportation platform. So it's a conversation that we're having today, asking about Greenlight. It's going to be a platform that we're working on as we speak. Looking at the wrong person, as we speak. We're working on getting the digital platform up. So Greenlight will be a digital platform with aggregation. Greenlight's a place to ask questions and get answers. Greenlight's a place to register reservations and try to get additional information. So Greenlight's a conversation. Greenlight is also an experience. And I don't know if we brought things, but Greenlight is an experience, and part of it you've seen. These things, our expectation is that Greenlight will be in lots of different places and lots of different ways that you probably never imagined. So for example, we expect that in neighborhoods you'll see signs like that, and people are already asking for them. After April 24th, I guess it'll be okay that we can distribute them. That says, ask me about Greenlight. I think his name is John Ewing. I spoke to him today at another meeting, and he was very excited about the meeting he just had with Brad and Simon, I believe. In any event, he's like, how do I get more information? Who can I talk to? How can I help people in my Council of Northeast
North County
neighborhoods get more information about Greenlights? They want to know. It'll be bumper stickers. It'll be lights. It'll be an experience that you can experience on social media. You can see it on a badge. You can see it on a pin. You can ask for people to come speak to you, and we'll be hopefully engaging all of you to become speakers, to go to your communities and your neighborhoods, talk to people that you know and say, this is what we're trying to do. This is what it's about. Give me your questions. Be on a panel. Engage in this process, because we really want the Pinellas experience to be, from the ground up, to be transparent and inclusive. And so it's a conversation, it's a platform, it is an experience, but because government needs it, it's also, Greenlight is a process of getting to a decision point.
Let me go back for 1 second to this part of it. These are all up right now, so if you have any of these, share them with your friends, start letting people know that they're out there. It's important that while we have something up, if nobody's looking at it or nobody's liking it, then we don't have a conversation, and that's really important to push out. But Greenlight is a public engagement process. This is what we are all working on all the time. This is where we are. This is our current, all of our agencies, PSTA, AFTA, PPC, MPO, TBARDA, all working on different transportation plans. We are working with the ACPT as kind of the aggregator. They have all these representatives sitting on this group, and they're all responsible talking to their agencies about what's happening. Through the process, as we move through this, we're proposing that sometime towards the end of May, we stand up what we're calling the Greenlight Committee. And there's a business committee, there's a government committee, which actually the ACPT rolls into. There's a civic committee. These committees are open to each one of those groups. So the business committee, we would have obvious representatives from the St. Pete Chamber, the Clearwater Chambers, people from North County, people from South County, Mid County, all businesses represented. If you want to get involved and you want to learn more about Greenlight, then you can sit on this committee. We're taking names, certainly from any of you sitting here. We would take them, Brad, send them to Brad, and we'll get them, make sure that they get notified. Excellent, that's what we need. And the same thing for the civic group and the government group. The government group, because it's ACPT, is kind of there already, standing up. But this civic group will be the Sierra Club, the CNCN, any neighborhood association, the Urban League, the any North County other organizations that you have in, let's say, Dunedin, right? There are many, many civic groups that we want to be involved. These groups will meet a few times over the summer, and they will take information, questions. From the Greenlight website, we'll have an area where you could, maybe you are a business person, you can't attend one of the meetings, but you really want to make sure that this question is asked at the business meeting. That will be submitted, and we'll make sure that they get that. But at these summer meetings, it's an opportunity for the whole community in those different segments to go, and it's open to everyone, to go and get the information that they're looking for and ask the information that they want to know more about, how it affects them, where it goes, all the different questions that we know that we've been asked, but at the local level so that people can understand that. And they'll be in different places, not necessarily all here in this building, but all around the county. What then happens is we move into, this is the September, October timeframe, the Greenlight Council. The Greenlight Council will take representatives from each of those 3 committees, and they will go through what we're calling a 60-day kind of Congress. They will vet everything, make sure all the questions that we really need answers to have been answered. This Greenlight Council is important because all the people that worked in these committees, the representatives from these committees will flow into the Greenlight Council. And they'll be designated as the people who are moving this ball forward and are taking responsibility. What then happens is the Greenlight Council will talk to PSTA and make sure that they present and then move forward and present the overall plan to the county. So they won't be, we talked about this a little bit the other day, they're not illegal, we're not going through a legal entity. This is kind of the public engagement chart. So however it needs to flow approval-wise, that's kind of maybe a different story. But this is where we feel like the Greenlight Council is a direct representative of all the organizations, of the neighborhoods, of the businesses, of everyone in Pinellas County. And they are going to report to the county on what this plan looks like.
So the promise was one conversation, go back to that. And you can see that there are multiple conversations going on now, but it all flows together into one conversation. Promises, and I know you're dying to ask questions, so I can stop now. Why don't I stop now?
The chart, the question is, what is the refinement process? And I think you just talked about it, that the Greenlight Council will vet everything and make sure that concerns are addressed. One of the concerns that
Exact word, but go ahead.
What?
I'm not sure you said exact phrase, but go ahead.
Maybe I got it wrong, but for instance, one of the things that we've had come up with in Clearwater, as we've gone around and Brad has done presentations, is the concept of a bus connection from Clearwater Beach to TIA. And that was not in the original AA, but that feedback has come up. But I don't think it's been incorporated into the revised plan. And so I'm wondering.
We do that for the next conversation. So,
Okay.
but I am listening.
I'm just, and let's
All
say
right.
we,
Well, good, it's in. Good conversation, it's in the.
but let's say there's something else
Right.
like that that comes out through this process. Where would that refinement take place? Is it in the circle? What's the refinement process within this?
Sure. So it is a continuous process. It's not only in one place. The example you just had is that conversation came up about the connection to TIA, and my guess is that that is in here between ACPT and PSTA. You just refined that issue, right? Do I have that right? So here's a refinement that just occurred.
It wasn't visible to me.
I think it's going to get addressed in the second part of this, but so we expect that these groups are still working and they're experts and they're refining, and that all that refinement goes to the ACPT. The ACPT will take that refined plan or documents or suggestions, and they will turn it and say, okay, this is what came up from NPO, TBARDA, PPC, PSTA, and here is what you have to consider from May to August. So what they deliver through ACPT goes out to the Greenlight committees. So the first level refinement is here. This is refinement number 2. This is refinement number 3. Okay?
Why don't we do this? Why don't we let you finish your presentation, because I know I have questions too.
Okay.
And we'll ask questions at the end, if that's okay.
So the promise was it'd be one conversation. As you can see, it dovetails. The promise was that it would be inclusive. We think we got all the groups and we're certainly willing to put more people in, so anyone who wants to express an opinion. This is to try to gather all opinions. It's not to try to create artificially one side or the other. You can say buses, I can say trails, I can say whatever I want in these conversations, and then it'll move forward and finally move into what we call the Greenlight process going forward, answering the question of what's in it to me. So I want to end this part of the presentation, I hope the video is ready to go, by saying that we've done this, Pinellas County, PSTA, we've done this in a different way. We've done this in a way that we think represents the way that Pinellas County makes decisions. And you have heard and will continue to hear people who are saying, we didn't do this the right way. Here's another way of doing this. This is sort of not the traditional way. And we're asking each of you, when that comes up, to think that through, listen to what we said here, and to consider the following video.
Our next contestant hails from Columbus, Georgia. Let's hear it for Dee Westry. Come on out, Dee. All right, so what is your talent? What will you be performing today?
I'm a speed painter, and I'm going to do a painting in a minute and a half or less.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Let's hear it for Dee Westry.
comes into view at the right time. What we've done is not the traditional approach, but the Greenlight process, what we've done here 30 years later, is coming into focus, we think at the right time, and it'll be available for everyone to clearly see what it is you're trying to accomplish. That process comes into view, we hope, in November, and at that point, it'll be about the Pinellas Transportation Project. This is a Clyde Butcher photograph, and I don't know if those of you who know him. He has a traditional camera, and it takes one shot at a time. So what he has to do is work very, very hard to get the lighting and the setting just right, because he takes one picture. And so our point is, it's about timing, sequence, intensity, and it's not necessarily about what tools you use, but how you use them. And the Greenlight process is using the tool in the way that Pinellas County is, and the way that Pinellas County makes decisions. Madam Chair, I'll stop and answer questions.
Thank you very much. Second time I've seen that, so it's better. Okay, questions? Bill?
Well, I had a question on refinement and how that process would work. I didn't see it on the chart.
Can I just stop you there, Brad? So if this gets to where the green light, you've got the business, the civic, and the government groups, and you're out doing, y'all are out doing whatever, you know, you're talking to people. Excuse me. And you get through that process a new thing. Once you've got your three groups, then it's, and it's a new thing that you think is viable. What do you do? How does it go back to?
It comes back to PSTA.
I mean,
if it's a bus, if it's a route to the airport, it comes back to the PSTA and will be subject to approval by the PSTA board.
And you adjust
if
it.
It's a, I don't know if it's a land use thing that the city of Clearwater thinks the zoning should be, or you know, the land use plan should be somewhat different. It probably needs to go to the PPC, and if it affects the transit, the PSTA. As Tony said, it looks so different, and only like 1 out of 30 of their slides shows all these committees and stuff. This looks like the normal committees, but this is all just part of the public engagement process. This is in replacement for the public hearing that we would normally have for a grant project. None of this replaces the actual entities, PSTA, NPO, PPC. We're not going to do an MOU or any kind of legalized documentation on these committees. They have no authority. They represent the public. They're the same as a public hearing, but in a totally different way with Twitter and all this stuff. It's a way of engaging the public. It's a way to get that information. We hope that they will come up with new ideas, but then it's not on this chart, but it goes back to the real entities that can do something about it. It's like the headlights on a bus or car. It's not the car. I mean, it's not the actual engine. That's still PSTA and this.
Well, we'll talk about that when we talk about the chart or ECP. I was just reacting to this and wondering how that refinement process. Because if you go out and ask somebody for their opinion and they tell you something, you have an obligation to do something about it. And so that was what I was trying to get at is, I think if I was to modify this, I would address that. I don't know if you have addressed it actually on the document, but if you talk about it, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Another thing that's not just the Greenlight process, but you talked about your 3 needs: a viable, credible plan, and we're getting getting to that, I think once the bus plan drops on us and we figure out how it fits with some of the other things. I was interested in your chart. You said the number one thing you wanted was park and rides. And I'm not sure that our plan has park and rides in it. So that's just kind of a question too.
Yeah, I think, yes.
And that comes next, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. And that was a collection of data of what people liked in the plan. So there's, you know, high.
But that is something that I hear as I go around the community and people say, hey, I want to drive from my house to the shopping center at Alderman and 19, take the 19. Another thing I reacted to from your presentation was 3D. That was the second one. Someone must be accountable for executing the plan. And this goes back to the question that I've been asking of who's the trail boss, who's the project manager, and I'm struggling with that because I think they're sitting on this side of the table, but we haven't really formalized that. And it's just my personality style, conscientious that I'm seeing that is something that builds credibility in my mind as far as there is somebody pulling together all these pieces. The ACPT is kind of a stars from various elements in Pinellas County that are kind of trying to make some comments, but yet I don't see them as doing the work or making sure the work gets done yet. It hasn't gotten to that. And that's the accountability as far as the execution. And then the other thing that
Can I just, if you're going on to another subject, it's PSTA that's the head and accountability, right?
Right.
But I think what we found at the last ACPT meeting when we were talking about the MOU, which we'll talk about later, we had to remind ourselves, or Brad had to remind us, that it's not the ACPT that's making the final, I don't want to say decision, but the final, let's say, community outside PSTA input. And that's right there, the Greenlight Council. They're going to have their final stamp of approval. And so it's these Greenlight people that take it from, in my opinion, take it from the board level, meaning PSTA, NPO, PPC, ACPT, which are representatives of those folks, takes it from the board level to the community level,
Yes.
which is two different things. And once it goes to Greenlight, it's at the community level, even though you have some government involvement. And then you've got these three parts of the community: government, business, and civic. And then those people go to this Greenlight Council, and according to your staffing, they have a 60-day period to review and endorse the plan for advancement. And I would say probably at that point it might come back to PSTA for, a stamp, probably too, but then it goes to the county. So I don't think there is one group that's ahead. PSTA is the head, but this is about involving everyone else.
Yeah, I probably want to clarify. So this is all about public communication.
Right, it's different than...
So it's not a legal decision, or it's not an engineering decision about who has the contract, who's building the rail. That's not, when we talk about accountability, that's not what we're talking about.
The work will get done through Brad. Brad is the accountable party. He's the one that will oversee that the work is getting done.
For the public, what we want them to know is whatever that entity is. Right now, if you ask the versus people in the busy middle. Who's accountable? They couldn't tell you. The end of this process, I don't know if that's the equivalent of trail laws, because I think it's different. I think it's, what we know from Hillsborough and others is that the community wants to feel like they know what the plan is and who's responsible. That's a broad thing. It could be, it may not be as simple as a single name. It's probably an entity supported by FDOT, blah, 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 blah. But what you're looking for, what we're looking for in this is for the entire community to have a grasp of it at the level they want to. And that may not be 2,000 pages. They may want to be able to say, it's Greenlight and PSTA. End of story. I want to vote for or against it.
Well, and your other, this one does have an action on it to draft an accountability plan.
I'm not sure what you're
That's
an
ours.
ACPT work plan that engages in the technical process what the Greenlight public engagement process is trying to do. So when you're talking about what's your feedback loop, that's where your feedback loop happens. You say we have a line in there that's the technical work that the ACPT is going to see. We have another line in there that's about coordinating and making sure that everybody's having one conversation. That's where we take this strategy, this concept, and put it into action.
So those lines would cross, converge,
Right.
and the public would be told, ACP finished this work on the technical accountability. Here's what they say. You guys want to discuss this? And they say, yeah, you come make a presentation. Got it, we understand.
But what I really like about this is that I go to all kinds of meetings and I get all kinds of ideas, and this consolidates the ideas into one place where I know I don't have to say this business guy said that and that businesswoman said something else, and now I have to go back and put it in there. No, now I can take it to the business review committee and say, what say you business community, everyone in there. And the other thing I like is that you have the same concept for the civic community. And here you have that balance between the two, that they're all, in the eyes of Greenlight, they are all equal. And they are having one conversation, sending one message to the technical folks, because we can do all kinds of things, but we can't do everything. And so it allows us to have the conversation with the public and let the public and these groups decide what is this going to be and understand the trade-offs and debate amongst themselves with the trade-offs.
I think Cassandra just made the essential point. It's one conversation, one set of messages. The idea is that when it comes back to PSTA, you have a message. It doesn't mean they agreed on every single item. That's not what we're doing. Frankly, I was telling someone the other day, for those of us who know about construction projects, those people are still changing the fabric, as the building's going up.
Right.
So I expect that. But the general, is it a high rise? Yes, it is. Is it a hotel? Yes, it is. That's the general conversation. So, Commissioner, I know that there'll be more details that will get worked out, but what we want and what we think is essential to people, to a community being able to decide, is that they have agreement on the big basic things. Are we building a house? Yes. Do we like the plans? Yes. We're going to build it on this street? Yeah, we are. Okay, you guys go forth and do all that magic stuff.
I kind of agree with what you guys are saying. With the accountability part, when you were describing the accountability function, the way I understand it, is that we want the public to buy in to the idea that here is an organization that can actually accomplish this.
Yes.
And I don't see us trying to educate the public that the Greenlight Committee can do this. I think what we have is we've got all the inputs from, and everybody is communicated, and the Greenlight has said this is what. But in the end, it's the PSTA that's actually going to have to do this. So that I think we're going to have to say, Fortunately, we've got the PSTA, which has been making the buses run on time for the last 30 years here, and it's a capable group. But I think it's going to come down to saying, look, these are the people that are actually going to be doing it for you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be part of it, certainly part of it, and that's why you see PSTA and others rolling out. Other parts will be, for example, we've had this discussion from the county commission. How much money is there? That question would be asked. That's not necessarily a question about how you operate. That is a question. And somewhere through this process, when Pinellas County hands over those numbers, it'll be important to people outside of the halls of government that a business person said, I looked at those numbers and I believe what the county said about those numbers. That's also accountability. Is the number accurate? Is the way that they're going to manage the funds appropriate within the business principles? That's also part of the accountability.
But in the end, it's got to be who is going to do it. And so I think there's got to be
If I can add to what you're saying, if you don't mind, because I'm thinking kind of what you're saying, and I'll just put it out there. PSTA doesn't necessarily have the best reputation out there. Not because of anything PSTA has done, it's that thing, well, we see empty buses. We don't have a good bus system now, so people can sometimes, I would say people that don't ride transportation, for the most part. The people that ride it, I think, feel differently. But people that don't ride public transportation just have this connotation, because we've been limited. Our service has been, it's not that the service is bad, it's limited.
Right.
Okay? And so there's this impression. So indeed, we as PSTA are going to be accountable. So in your process, they're going to be asking that. We're going to have to say it's PSTA in the long run is the accountable person implementing the plan. How do we ensure people trust us?
That's the essential question. And what happens?
And again, please, when I say this, I'm not trying to fluff ourselves up. It's.
But the PSTA does a great job.
I think it does. Now, I mean, how do we get that trust?
I would say that over time, until recently, PSTA has not done a good job at saying what they do really well. PSTA is one of the best run agencies of its size in the country. When we look at what we're doing and how we're doing it, and we're testing that all the time through what Brad's doing with his benchmarking group, but we haven't told our story. And so now when we go out and we say, here's the bus plan, here's the AA, here's Greenlight, we also have to say, this is our historical proof that we're doing a good job.
With what we have.
We are doing
of the limits that we have.
Yes, and that's you are exactly right, that we need to tell our story better and tell what we're doing. And that's Bob has done this great bus buzz. It's got national attention about.
Every time I open my email, it's either
his
media alert or my Google alert of PSTA.
The marketing department is doing great things with getting the word out. They're spearheading the Speakers Bureau, getting things organized. They are always looking for new ways to do that, and they won awards. We don't talk about the awards that the marketing department has won. We're doing all kinds of great things in the planning department in terms of thinking about what's the next step, what's the future. When we go out, we have a mission in marketing and planning to do a better job of telling our story.
So you're talking about that while you're out in your thing. Mm-hmm. My question is, through the Greenlight process, and you all, are you assisting in that from from your skill set?
I think the answer to the first question is yes, and we would tell you the first thing you have to do where you can deliver a message, you have to have people listen. And so there's one conversation. I said it, I was just thinking about with all three chambers, and Tampa, Clearwater, and St. Pete. The conversation is about transportation. It's about Greenlight. You can't deliver the message if nobody's listening. So there is now one conversation. Now that people now want to ask that question about, tell me about the buses again. Ask me about Greenlight. You won't be able to tell them your story if they're saying, I got to get the kids to soccer. So this is the time for that one conversation. This is the time. So the challenge number one is to get everybody to stop and listen to that discussion amidst their busy lives. There's lots of things going on. The Rays will continue to lose.
Stop it.
And, you know, there'll be things going on. And so we want to get this moment in time where we say, this is the time to talk about transportation. And who better to talk about it than PSTA? So the point of it is to go deliver that message. I especially appreciate the one that shows the buses, the time. People don't know, I mean, there are people on the chamber committees who are engineers who didn't know that. But because of this process, they stopped and they stood still and they said, oh, I get it. So the first challenge is always, do we have your attention?
Get him in the room.
Get him in the room. So we're going to get him in the room.
Yeah.
You're going to deliver your messages.
And it's one of the things too that we talked about in the other presentation to ACPT is, so this is the public, you can go somewhere and talk to someone. But all the other pieces are really important too, and we'll do the traditional things. We'll have the, flyer with the information. We'll have the place where you can go on the website and submit the question. Yeah. There are all those other mechanisms so that people are funneling back to this one conversation.
I believe in the process. I have no problem with the process. I just am feeding off of what you said, in the fact that, and what you said, Bill, who's the trailblazer, who's the boss, who in the long run is the accountable person and is implementing the plan if it does get then approved through the referendum. Well, that is PSTA. And so, okay, will people be okay with that? And do we, I'm hoping that you're assisting us with helping to ensure people will be okay with PSTA being the accountable force.
The question is, when do we start inserting that?
Yeah, because people really haven't talked about that.
The reason that we showed the last video is that it comes into view at the right time.
Yeah.
And so we will ask you to trust our judgment that it comes into view at the right time. And when people are prepared to hear it. And right now, what has to come into view is that we got to have a conversation on transportation.
Right.
There's only
not a debate about the accountability part of it, or not a debate about who's pulling the strings. No. It's about the issue at hand, which is transportation.
And once everyone says we have to do transportation, as you look around Pinellas County, who else would do a project like this?
Right.
Who would that be? Is there somebody else that we missed?
I see what you're saying.
Well, I think that's why Greenlight works in the context of what we've done with the ACPT, which is, even though this is and we're going to talk about the bus plan, and the bus plan is something that the PSTA should be doing anyway. We would be doing anyway. And we're including all of these other transportation partners, we're including everyone in the conversation. It's something that we should be doing because it's the right thing to do. And it also makes the plan better.
And the thing I want to add to Sam said, the first thing we told you, Commissioner, is remember the consensus of leadership? The leaders of this community, the 25 plus, will decide. And there's already a consensus. They've said, keep doing what you're doing. That is them saying, keep doing what you're doing. I won't pick on Hillsborough, but there was
I know, they couldn't even get their consensus to move forward, let alone to even get to this point.
So it'll come into view, and we think that I'll look around the room and say, who's going to do this? Those business people, they know you hire a lawyer to do the work. You hire an engineer to build things. You don't mix them. You wouldn't ask your engineer to represent you in court. So they'll look around the room and they'll say, okay, this is how we're going to do it.
Just don't get ahead of ourselves.
Well, and one of the things about Greenlight, Greenlight's the brand, it's the promise that we're going to deliver. And so through the delivery of Greenlight, the one public conversation, that builds more and more and more confidence and credibility in the organization. So,
Bill, do you have any more questions?
I've got a bunch of other things that are, that I'm interested in. Let me just go through them and not ask for response.
Okay.
I know we've got a lot more on our agenda.
Well, but now's the time to ask your questions versus at the board level, so do what you need to do.
And if there's some things that need a longer explanation, we'll say, we'll get back to you and get it to you in Friday or morning.
One thing that I think people have asked me about is once a referendum is approved, what's going to happen next? Some high level.
Okay, I think that one we won't respond to.
Well,
I know, but let me just say, what happens next is a whole lot of additional design and evolution. There's the PD&E, there's the detailed design. I mean, this is not the final effort. It's the journey to an approval, which is that yes, we want to continue to make the investment.
Yes.
But there's going to be more, and I think those busy middle people need to know that, well, the rail probably wouldn't be showing up for 8 years, right? Because there's a whole series of processes.
Well, and it's funny that you say that. I just spoke with Brad about this yesterday or Monday, whenever we talked. Monday, because today's Monday. Monday's across, excuse me. What I said to him, and I think we're saying the same thing. I said, how do people know, this was in regards to the bus study with our conversation. I wanted to know, okay, referendum is approved. As we're getting, to me, in this process, in this dialogue, they need to have something very simple, whatever that is, one piece of paper that says, in year 1, you're going to implement X. In year 2, you're going to implement X and Y. And in year 3, you're going to implement Y and Z, so that they know a simple, no detail, but a simple, this new bus thing is going to be here in year 1, and this new whatever trolley is going to be here in year 2, and this, by year 3, you're going to have a complete BRT system, or whatever it is. They need to know what they have to expect, so that when they see it happen, they know it's accountable. If they see it's not happening, they'll be asking why.
Yes.
And that makes it brings you some confidence. And so I agree with you. I think that needs to be a part of the dialogue after you've gotten them in the room, after the plan, everybody's sort of on board. That needs to be a huge public part of it.
I think that's right. The other thing, though, one of the things where I might differ slightly with Mr. Johnson is this. The reason we put the civic groups up there and ask the business community to join, and that we'll be asking the panels, is we want to ask them what they really want to know. And I rest assured, no one has asked us for PD&E.
Yeah.
What is it?
PD&E.
Nobody's asked for one yet.
Planning development.
So while they want to know it in the way that you described it.
Right.
To say, hey, this is coming first, this bus, this red, in sort of broad terms, but they don't want that level of detail at this point. So we're not contemplating on giving them something they didn't ask for. It's sort of like a restaurant. You order your food, you get it, you prepare it properly, but we don't tell you eat your carrots.
Or you don't tell them how you killed the cow.
We don't.
Okay. So that was more just.
Okay.
If nothing else, have it in your back pocket so you.
We're not going to give anybody any carrots.
Another thing is the option of doing nothing. What would our system look like if we just continued on without taking this option?
So I think that's going to come out in the bus studies and the other things. And that will be considered in Greenlight, but it's not part. Our engagement process is to get people in the room so they can listen to the expert present all the options. But we are, my favorite word, we are agnostic. We are not the carriers of the solution.
It's the chart that Brad has with the green arrows, double-headed arrows, and the red. What happens in that red arrow? How would we respond to just going ahead as is today? And it's an option. People may choose that option.
Right.
But we're not going to do what you might call the scare tactic in the branding process.
The brand promise is that we're going to have a single conversation. It's going to be inclusive. It's going to allow people to bring up any issues they choose to and ignore issues they don't think are relevant. And the branding process does not attempt to answer that technical question. Does not. Does not attempt to say X or Y. It says there ought to be a conversation about transportation. These are the right people to have that discussion. You guys have at it, and when you're done with your work, come back to the experts and say, we think this is what should be the plan.
All right. The other two items I know about is the pedestrian and the bicycle.
That was my question too. That was my question too. The brand, the logo.
What are we doing about the walkers and the bicyclists?
Every single person that rides transit starts or ends their trip as
That's
a
what I was
pedestrian
thinking.
or a bicyclist. We have to be able to accommodate those options to getting to the transit system. So as an example of that, in every rail station area, we have accommodated in our costs sidewalks so that people can get around the station area. So that's why they're up.
And an excellent response.
It is.
Thank you.
It's also
it is, but I went to the same place, and when I looked at it, I was thinking about it, and I thought same thing. You're either riding your bike or carrying the bike on the bus, or you're walking. I eventually got there, but it took me a little while, because I do think the average everyday person is going to see that bike and the walker and think, and there is a few people trying to push that.
The people working on the design had an explanation that decided that every trip starts with you walking out the door, walking.
I mean, I certainly we're not trying to nitpick you. It's,
no, it's fine.
You may drive.
Well, but you have to walk out of your house and into drive. So
I totally agree on that. So that's my reaction.
Okay.
That I want.
anything else from you, my friend?
I just want to say, I love your picture of Tip O'Neill with a flat top.
we had to look for that one. As we were talking to Commissioner Roach earlier, all of us, maybe not you, all of us had more hair a few years ago.
I just have two quick things. And this might be a detail that you're not even there. I don't need to jump ahead. It's not a big deal. I just, as you were going through the business group, the civic group, and the governmental group, which governmental group will be the ACPT. And then it goes on to the Greenlight Council. How many, do you know at this point, how many are going to be on the Greenlight Council?
We were recommending no more than 9. 9, yeah,
9 is usually a manageable.
And we're trying to figure out how that all works.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if it was I still consider that a small group compared to PSTA, but I wasn't sure just how broad that was going to get. And then the other question, or the other statement I just want to make is I just tried to go on Facebook and it's not there.
I went on the Facebook and it was there.
I can't
I'll
get it.
find it.
Okay. All I did is I went on my Facebook page, and you know how you search for Facebook pages?
Yeah.
I mean, I've already
put
my email on the website. We did that after the last
And we
thing.
went to go on Instagram with your brother.
Yes, Instagram.
Instagram.
Do you have Instagram?
I don't, but I will.
Yes.